Yeah, good evening all. So what was the last question we discussed? Privacy. Look at this. You try to tell me how can you structure this answer? The most significant achievement of modern law in India is the constitutionalization of environmental problems by Supreme Court. Discuss the statement with the help of relevant case laws. So what is the question about again? In introduction, what should you write about then? What do you have to write about? Constitutionalization. Please define. Please note down the question first. So they are clearly telling you with the help of relevant case laws. Right? Yeah, define the term constitutionalization. Constitutionalization refers to making a provision part of the constitution. Making a provision part of constitution. That means you are making something as part of the constitution. Who can do it? Under Article 368, Parliament can do it. That is more than obvious. Amendment of Constitution. Under Article 368, Parliament can do it. Then obviously, who is the other one who can do that? Supreme Court can do that through, of course, High Court also, but we will always keep writing about Supreme Court. Supreme Court can also do it through its various judgments. Supreme Court can also do it as part of its various judgment or through its various judgment. Supreme Court can also do it through its various judgment. What do we call it as? Which are called as invisible amendments to Constitution. Which are called as, Supreme Court can also do it through its various judgment, which will be called as, or which are called as, invisible amendments to Constitution. Invisible amendments to Constitution. Clear? So that's what you have to, because it's a technical word, you have to define it. Fine. Now clarify, because the link is about environmental problems, talk about that. Supreme Court through its various cases or judgments, Supreme Court through its various judgments, because the question is about that, environmental issues. Supreme Court through its various judgment has declared right to environment as part of, has declared right to environment or right to clean environment as part of Article 21. Has declared through its various judgment has declared right to clean environment as part of Article 21. Right? Now write the list. Then you go to the discussion part. Now what are that list? Obviously you know that one or two you will be knowing famously. What is the first major famous one? Environment means what is who is the person? Yeah, that is first person. Right to clean environment or right to pollution free environment. MC Mehta case. Right to pollution free environment or right to just clean environment you can write. Right to clean environment, MC Mehta case. And then few others are there, better you write that. Intergenerational equity principle means you should use, look at the word itself, you should use resources in such a way that even the next generation has sustainable development. Intergenerational equity principle. In fact, this one we had Mentioned it in our notes also last time. Same, more or less same questions you got it. Intergenerational equity principle. We should call it as, in bracket, Sundar Rajan case. Sundar Rajan case. Sundar Rajan case. Then polluter pays principle. Look at the word itself. Means what? Whoever is polluting, he has to play the complete one. Polluter pays principle. So which is the case? Vellore Citizens Welfare Forum case. Vellore, the Tamil Nadu town. Vellore Citizens Welfare Forum case. Vellore Citizens Welfare Forum case. Fine, then absolute liability principle, that is also MC Mehta case. Absolute liability principle. Now look at the word. What do you mean by absolute liability? Absolute liability principle, MC Mehta again. Now earlier what they used to do was, let's say for example you have Bhopal gas strategy kind of a one. Earlier the point was they used to follow strict liability, or you can say partial liability. Means what? Let's say for example, because of company some gas disaster, leak happened, this happened, something that happened. Let's say the overall compensation is 50,000, or let's say 50, let's assume some 10,000 crore. Company was only forced to pay 2,000 crore, or let's say 3,000 crore. The rest will pay. Government used to pay. That was what you can say partial liability or strict liability, we used to call it as. Later Supreme Court said nothing doing. Look at the word. What is it? Absolute. What does that mean then? Everything completely government should say, this company should pay. That is absolute liability principle, which is again your MC Mehta case. Fine. So like that, Diwali related case are there, multiple issues are there. These are all Supreme Court related environmental cases. Now it is not enough. Now what do you have to do? Discuss the statement. Now significance of constitutional, or significance of this process, of these judgments. Significance of, it's better you write the word, because subheadings matter a lot. Always I'll keep telling that. In subheadings, the evaluator should feel that okay fine, through subheadings itself he should understand you have addressed all the subparts of the question. Significance of constitutionalization. That means because they constitutionalized, what is the advantage? Now you logically think because they did it, what is the advantage? What is the advantage? First point, people can have access to clean air, water, etc. People can have access to clean air, water, etc., which is integral for dignified life. People can have access to clean air, water, etc., which is part of, or which is integral part of dignified life. Article 21 in bracket, which is part of dignified life, that is Article 21. Fine, is more than obvious. Then 2, what does it do? It puts obligations on the government. Because now it is part of fundamental right. What should government do? Government should take measures to give it to you. It puts obligations on the government. Second point, it puts obligations on the government to ensure clean environment to its citizens. Puts obligations on the government to ensure clean environment to its citizens. Fine, for them. For example, you can say, for example, restrictions related to Diwali crackers. Like that, many are there. Or restriction, if you don't want to write that, restrictions related to this gas plants, this, that, everything you can write. And that is another issue. Then next point, you can say provides compensation to the victims of disasters like Bhopal gas tragedy. Many are there, you know that obviously. Disasters to the victims like Bhopal gas tragedy. Victims like the Bhopal gas tragedy. Right? Then it helps the government and the citizens. It helps the government and citizens to tackle the problems of global warming and climate change. It helps government and the citizens. It helps the government and the citizens to tackle the problems of global warming and climate change. global warming and the climate change. Fine, international obligations, so many things are there. And these are all what? Because of the impact of constitutionalization, government can't violate it now. But what is the loophole or challenge? Challenges. Challenges are what? Challenges. What is the first major challenge? Supreme Court has tilted the balance of power in its favor. Supreme Court has tilted the balance of power in its favor through such various judgments. That means through everything, Supreme Court interferes. Tilted balance of power in its favor through its various judgments. Fine, what can it also do? It puts immense financial burden on the government, because government has to give you everything now. It puts immense financial burden on the government. I mean, just imagine what else, everything they have to give now. Immense financial burden on the government. And that is another one. The next point. In some instances, it interferes with religious, cultural issues. In some instances, it interferes with religious, cultural issues. Like which one? Very famous is obviously what? Example, ban on Diwali firecrackers. That itself is a separate question. Ban on the Diwali firecrackers. Clear? So, like this is how you have to structure your answer, because you cannot just write, yeah, whatever Supreme Court has told is better. You should always write in mains answers both the sides of the argument. Before writing both the sides of the argument, you cannot conclude just like that. It can be anything literally. Fine. Sir, what in place of discuss, let them give explain, examine, analyze, critically analyze, comment, let them give anything, the structure of the answer will not largely change. Because if you are still not aware about, sir, what about the directive, sir, will it change anything? Actually, by the rigid definition of what you call as those keywords, like what you call it as directives, the structure has to change. But the point is, with the way UPSC is asking questions, one who writes from multiple dimensions will always have a better chance of scoring more. Hence, it doesn't matter what they ask. Let them ask, examine, explain this, that, anything they ask, your structure will more or less remain the same. The only change that will happen is, if they have asked, do you think, what is your opinion, justify, something like that if they ask, then explicitly you may have to say, based on this so and so your opinion kind of a one. That kind of questions normally you will get it in ethics, because ethics where you have to take a moral stand. GS 1, 2, 3, more or less you will not have something like, what is your opinion, something like that you will not get normally in 1, 2 and 3. It's where ethics, because in case studies you might have seen, or in some questions they will ask that, because that's a different part. That's where you have to, your ethics is tested, moral values are tested. Here, don't worry about that, stick to the same approach. Got it? These are all the burdens that will be put on the government. Fine? Yeah, like for example, see, the Bhopal gas tragedy, you can also write that, next one. Bhopal gas tragedy victims issue is still not settled. If you might have seen, every time and again the news will keep coming into the, the issue will keep coming into the news. Bhopal gas tragedy victims compensation issue, because now you have to pay a lot. Now company is unable to do that. Government interfered. Government is also unable to do it. Bhopal gas tragedy victims compensation issue is still not settled because of the absolute, in bracket you can say, because of absolute liability principle. Is still not settled because of absolute liability principle. Huh? That's not earlier. Now because you have to give so much of compensation, it's not settled. Like that. The point is, when in Supreme Court interferes directly, there is an advantage, because what Parliament may not do it, government may not do it, you are directly making it part of Constitution. But what is the disadvantage? How will you enforce it? Who will give you that money? What if government takes it as a burden? All those things. Supreme Court is telling something, but government is not, that will lead to unnecessary issues. Or like something like Diwali crackers issue. All these are the problems. But finally, whenever Supreme Court says something, what you should do then? You should always back it. That's what is your conclusion. So how can you conclude then? Despite various shortcomings, limitations, various or multiple Supreme Court judgments, you can say, despite various shortcomings, multiple Supreme Court judgments has contributed. Multiple Supreme Court judgments have contributed. Multiple Supreme Court judgments have contributed to access of or access to clean environment for the citizens. Contributed to the access to the clean environment for citizens. Access to the clean environment for citizens. You can also say it also helps India in meeting the international obligations. Like many are there, you know that UNFCCC, UNCBD is there. It also helps India in meeting the or in achieving, in realizing the international obligations or obligations under international conventions. Fine. This is in a way kind of your category B question. Means what? Obviously you would have studied this kind of cases in even when you revise for prelims and all. But the point is, how do you at that moment you should generate these subparts. That's where the challenge comes. Very simple question. There is nothing complications here. It's not like a huge issue you don't understand. You will easily understand that. How do you write points? Because at that moment you have to generate points there. That's the biggest challenge here. Fine. This is relatively easy. For example, something like this is easy. Because right to privacy means so many points you get. We have already written Sri Krishna Committee, Data Protection Bill, right to abortion, right to this, that, everything you can add. This one, how do you generate points is a big challenge. Fine. Yeah, are you able to understand how to structure that answer? Now look at it. This is more direct question. But again, I think they would add it as a 10 marker. Imagine what if they ask it as a 15 marker? If they ask it as a 15 marker, where will you get the content to write 15 marker? That's where the challenge comes. Fine. Yeah, before that, if you want, what we'll do is we'll look at some, or we'll finish off these questions, then we'll go to the probable questions. Note on this, because let us structure a lot of answers in the beginning, then you'll get used to it, how to structure the answers. You try to tell me in the introduction, what will you write all this? First copy the question. Actually, I've already written the points related to it. In the morning when you wrote those fundamental rights. Now look at, so the normal mistake that students can make here is what? Because the moment they look at it, they can recall, okay, this is about 19 class 1 subclass D, 19 subclass E, all those things. They'll know about what does those articles tell, what is the component, reasonable restrictions, they know. Some people may be knowing about cases also. But always remember, I've told you multiple times again, forget about this. It can be discussed, analyze everything. What you should also write? The other side of the angle you have to write. If you don't write the criticism part, and if you just end up writing what is 19 class 1 subclass D and subclass E, it is just a 3 marker answer, that's it then. You should generate points related to what are the criticisms, does it lead to any kind of negative impact on nation's integration and all those things, that angles also you should bring. You will understand that. Now what is the question about? Introduction should be about what? Let's write about those things. Right to movement and residence is part of, first let's start with the basics. Whenever you realize that it's a kind of broad question, what you do is try to make long sentences, try to make wherever possible kind of short paragraph. Remember morning I told you, category B means in your mind you should understand, okay fine, I have less content here, I should play, a kind of management skill you have to use. That's the mains game itself is like that. It's not only about content. Fine, right to movement and residence is part of right to freedom, article 19 to 22. First let's write the core part. Right to movement and residence is part of right to freedom in bracket article 19 to 22. Then write about right to movement. 19 clause 1 subclause D talks about 19 clause 1 subclause D talks about which one? Right or freedom of movement. That is also fine. Talks about freedom of movement. Fine. What does it provide? It provides the citizens, again it is not for foreigners, again that is a keyword, underline that keyword. It provides the citizens freedom to move freely. It provides the citizens freedom to move freely throughout the territory of India. So citizens, territory of India, both to underline. It provides the citizens freedom to move freely throughout the territory of India. So citizens and territory of India should be underlined. Clear? Now the next point. Why is it important? It is necessary to ensure, or what we'll do is we'll not write this, we'll combinedly write significance. Let's write some basics about what do you call as this judgments and all those things. It is subjected to, then significance and criticism we'll write together. It is subjected to reasonable restrictions. It is subjected to reasonable restrictions on two grounds. Subjected to reasonable restrictions on two grounds. So which are they? You have written morning. First one is general public interest. Second one is interest of ST, scheduled tribe. General public interest and B, interest of ST. General public interest and second one is interest of scheduled tribe. Fine. Then 19 clause 1 subclause E. Let's write all the basics, then we'll go to the significance. 19 clause 1 subclause E, that is your freedom of residence. So if you write these basics, so that's a kind of sending a message to evaluator. 19 clause 1 subclause E, freedom of residence. It includes both temporary residence and permanent settlement. It includes both temporary residence. So get the keyword and keep writing about that. Temporary residence and permanent settlement, again for whom? For the citizens throughout the territory of India. For the citizens throughout territory of India. Again, it is also subjected to same reasonable restriction. It is also subjected to the same reasonable, means same, whatever you have written above, same. It is also subjected to the same reasonable restrictions. If you want, as 19 clause 1 subclause D, just to link. Same reasonable restrictions as 19 clause 1 subclause D. Fine. Now you have written the basics. The moment evaluator sees this, maybe let's say some 10 lines, evaluator gets to know, okay, that means you know the core, basics you know. Now come to the significance part. Significance or importance, anything. Or if you want, here you can write that word, because they have written the word freely available to citizen, you have written. What is the next word they have used here? Now they have used the word, just repeat that keyword. Hence both these rights are not absolute, because you have written the reasonable restrictions. Hence both these rights are not absolute. Hence both these rights are not absolute. It means subjected to reasonable restriction. Now you have clarified all the keywords in the question. Now go to the significance of, you can say 19 clause 1 subclause D, or directly you can write significance of right to movement and residence. Why do you need these things? Significance of right to movement and residence. So why are they important? Why are they important? Obviously, first point, it contributes to unity and integrity of the nation, because people will move together, settle together, all those things. It contributes, it enhances nation's unity and integrity. It enhances nation's unity and integrity. 2, it enables people it enables people to migrate to earn livelihood. It enables the people to migrate to earn their livelihood. In bracket, thereby fulfilling what? Thereby realizing freedom of profession. Because if you don't, you just imagine how many people come to go to Bangalore, Mumbai, Delhi, all those things. It's all about that. Enables the people to migrate to different places to earn their livelihood, thereby realizing which one? Freedom of profession. Class 1, subclass F, sorry G, that is different, fine. Freedom of profession, that will also be realized. Fine, that is another significance. Then it allows different cultures to be intermingled. It allows different cultures to be intermingled, means mixing. It allows different cultures to be intermingled, thereby contributing to unity in diversity. Allows different cultures to be intermingled, contributing to which one? Unity in diversity. So whatever keywords, you have to keep on underlining those things, that should become a habit. Contributing to unity in diversity. Fine, movement, temporary, permanent, okay, fine. Fine, yeah, reasonable restriction is also an advantage, you can write that. By providing certain reasonable restrictions, what it does? It protects the rights of vulnerable sections, including ST, or it protects the general public interest, especially ST. It protects the interest of vulnerable sections or general public interest, especially ST, especially scheduled tribe. Like what, sir? For example, restrictions for outsiders in Schedule 5, Schedule 6 areas is necessary. For example, restrictions for the outsiders in Schedule, you know that Schedule 5, Schedule 6 tribal. Restrictions for the outsiders in the Schedule 5, Schedule 6 areas is necessary. Fine. So that is needed. Fine. Yeah, then next one. Now criticism, or you can say shortcomings, anything. Criticism or shortcomings. Because that's the comment part. You have to write the other side also. Because what will happen because of those restrictions? These restrictions may act as a hindrance. Restrictions may act as a hindrance to unity and integrity. It may act as a hindrance to the unity and integrity. Sir, how do you say that? For example, restrictions may act as a hindrance to unity. For example, inner line permit provisions. Remember that in basics you would have studied. Inner line permit provisions. Which states do you have that? Yeah, those all easternmost states. Inner line permit provisions are criticized as it restricts entry of outsiders. Inner line permit provisions are criticized or sometimes misused, anything, as it restricts the entry of outsiders. And then various Supreme Court cases have restricted the rights of vulnerable sections. Various Supreme Court cases have restricted the rights of vulnerable sections in the name of or on the grounds of public interest. Restricted the rights of the vulnerable sections on the grounds of public interest. Means in the name of public interest they have restricted it. Sir, how do you say that? For example, in Kaushalya versus state of Uttar Pradesh, remember in morning we wrote, what was restricted? Rights of or free movement of prostitutes was restricted. They tell public interest, but sometimes that leads to violation of their rights. In Kaushalya versus state of UP, free movement of prostitutes was restricted. Because at that time they would have taken a different perspective, because this case happened in 1950s and 60s. Very old. Then they would have changed it obviously, but the point is it may lead to something like that. Similarly, what is the other one? In Lucy D'Souza versus state of Goa, free movement of HIV affected people was restricted. Now that's also a kind of discrimination, because that was the first case, it happened like that. In Lucy D'Souza versus state of Goa, in Lucy D'Souza versus state of Goa, free movement of whom? AIDS affected, HIV affected people was restricted. Free movement of the HIV affected people were restricted. Fine. So obviously rights of vulnerable sections, sometimes in the larger interest it may get violated. Got it? So this is another restriction. Okay, free movement, freely available. So then against whom restrictions, which is in a way needed also. For example, which one? Foreigners angle, how can you? As a limitation you can say, Article 19 clause 1 subclause D does not include. It is not actually a criticism, because it is a kind of category B question, you are generating the point. 19 clause 1 subclause D does not include which one? Which one? Right to travel abroad. It does not include the right to travel abroad, because the words used are territory of India. Right to travel abroad, which is covered where? Which is covered in Article 21. Which is covered in Article 21. I think that's fine. So that is how you have structure. Then how do you have to write? Again, sum up. Constitution makers have included these provisions, or repeat the word. It's better you repeat the word. That's a psychological game, because what is the keywords about? Yeah, repeat those words. Constitution makers have, what did we write? Have included right to movement and residence. Have included, or provisions related to also you can write. Have included the provisions related to right to movement and residence cautiously. Have included the provisions or related to right to movement and residence cautiously, to balance what? To balance both. To balance both unity and integrity concern, because that also we need. To balance both unity and integrity concern, as well as to balance both the unity and integrity concern as well as the socio-cultural diversity of India, So because that's why you have ST interest, public interest, as well as to balance the socio-cultural diversity of India. Clear? Now, most of the students, they may only write up the basics of constitution, but that will not suffice, because remember, it's a comment question, or any question for that matter. You can't just write like a prelims answer. You have to write how is it important, what is this loophole, then you have to balance. Remember, in conclusion always, I have already told you, more or less broadly you have to fix it, and two, in conclusion, don't bring new point. Don't write criticism in conclusion, because if you open a new point there, that means what are you telling? You are signifying that I am continuing later. So, in conclusion means you are not going to introduce anything new there. You just have to, whatever you have written, sum up. It's like what in movie, when you conclude, if you introduce new character, what does that mean? Part 2 is coming, it's more or less like that. You should conclude it. Don't introduce new points. Whatever you have told, sum up. Fine? Or else you are going to leave a, because conclusion matters a lot. If he feels that, the evaluator feels that, okay, fine, you have concluded holistically, half a mark you will get extra. Psychological game, all those things. Because if you observe, if some question you have not written conclusion, just abruptly ended, even though you feel like you wrote wonderful points, you may still get 4, 4.5. The 2-3 lines of conclusion will give you that half 1 mark extra. It's like what kind of fulfilling part, everything should get overlapped completely. Yeah, so this is how you should have structured. Of course, 1 or 2 extra points you can always keep adding. Is that clear? Then what is the next question? This is more broader. Again, the core point that you have to take is what? In the first subtopic that we are discussing, historical underpinnings, on which topic do they ask more number of questions there? Fundamental rights. Every alternate year you will have a fundamental right question. The another bigger question they are asking nowadays is interpretation of constitution. Means what? Basic structure, constitutional morality. Those questions are broad. Very rarely they will ask, 1 year they may ask about preamble, 1 year they may ask about UCC, DPSP like a one, because there is no other scope to ask in DPSP. There is another question that I have framed, I will show you. Other than that, there is no scope to ask in DPSP. Fine, or else they may ask about what creation of small states. As I said, there is another question, interstate border disputes. Other than that, you don't have the scope. Either it is fundamental rights, that too in fundamental rights there are 3-4. They should either ask on 19 or 21. The only option they have left out is which one? 32. That is where they can ask a question. On 32, if they ask, pretty direct, you know how to write that. Remember that, what is this, jurisdiction of Supreme Court, High Court, there only they have to ask, there is no other scope they can ask it. Or if they want to make it more broad, they should ask about data protection, right to privacy, something like that. That is in a way related to 21 only. Clear? So this is the areas you have to identify and you have to focus only there. Rest all doesn't matter. Clear? Yeah, please write down this. Because in the beginning, I will make sure that 2 to 3 topics, more or less every single question will write. Later we will club the questions so that you understand. First you should get that art of like how to structure it. Even if it's a category A question, category B question, whatever. The moment you look at it, you should, this is more or less category A. Because every time, imagine how many times, just recall freedom of speech expression, how many times have you studied, how many times have you written read articles on it. There is no end. Especially if you are studying Hindu, they talk a lot about this kind of articles. So the content will not be a huge problem here. Understand, what do you understand by freedom of speech and expression? Does it cover hate speech? Why do films stand on different plane compared to, third subpart may be a little challenging, because the question is, why do you think films are treated? Okay, now identify, normally as I have told, in a 10 marker you will have 2 subparts. Clear? This you can assume it as a 15 marker also, but it doesn't matter, either it's a 15 marker or 10 marker. Based on the demand you should structure it. Fine, let's sometimes what they do, you may not get, they may not tell you the difference. Here they have told the subparts. What do you understand by it? Does it cover hate speech? Third one is, what about films? 3 subparts clearly done. Sometimes what they do, they will not ask any subpart. They will just clear, they may tell, for example, critically analyze the recently released national education policy. Where do you have subparts here? There is no subpart. When they don't ask subpart, then what you should do? You should generate the subpart. Automatically the subparts will be salient features of national education policy, its significance, its challenges, way forward. So they may ask it. If they ask it, your work is easy. If they don't ask it, you should only generate the subpart. If you just keep on writing under 4 same content like under one subheading, not going to work. Clear? Yeah. So then, if you have written the question, then what you should address in the introduction itself, because what is the talk question about? Write about freedom of speech and expression. Freedom of speech and expression is mentioned in Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause A of the Constitution, or of Part 3 of the Constitution, like that also you can say. It is mentioned in Article 19 because you can't define it. You should tell where is it there, Constitution angle. Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause A in Part 3 of the Constitution. That's fundamental rights. In Part 3 of the Constitution. Clear? Because the moment they look at it, okay, fine, you know the article, you know the part. So that's clear. Now, it is a broad article which includes, morning we have written all these things. It is a broad article which includes multiple components. So just write 3-4. Again, here don't keep on writing the 10 list, whatever you have in, because that doesn't work. 3-4 major things, Remember, morning you have written that. Just try to recall what all does it include. Multiple components. A. What do you have under that? Freedom of press. A is freedom of press. Where the article in margin. I mean, what do you call this? Case. Bracket. Whatever. One case is enough. Either Brijbhushan case or Ramesh Thapar case. You have written all this in the morning. That's why I made you write, because that matters here. Ramesh Thapar case or Brijbhushan. Any one case you write in exam, that's more than enough. Because you will not have the scope to write multiple cases there. Then B, freedom of creative expression, which includes your movies, paintings, articles, everything. Freedom of creative expression, yes, Rangarajan case. Again, there are multiple. The Udta Punjab case is there, Prakash Mishra case, multiple are Prakash Jha case is there, but one, yes, Rangarajan case. Fine, that is another one. Then you can say, which one? Freedom of silence, Bijo Emmanuel case. Freedom of silence, Bijo Emmanuel case. Jehovah Witnesses, Bijo Emmanuel case. Then right against telephone tapping. Right against telephone tapping. Right to internet, Anuradha Bashin. Then right to internet, Anuradha Bashin case. Right to internet, Anuradha Bashin case. So you could have written 3-4 also in exam, but because we are writing it here a little more, so that means if you write that, the core part is what? What do you understand by freedom of speech and expression is done. But what you should also write? However, 19 clause 1 subclause A is not absolute. Same, obviously what is it? It is subjected to reasonable restrictions. However, 19 clause 1 subclause A is not absolute. It is subjected to reasonable restrictions. It is subjected to reasonable restrictions. Fine. You don't have to write all the 8 grounds, just write 3-4 grounds. Like what? Like. So write few. Morning we have written all these things like sovereignty and integrity of India. Like sovereignty and integrity of India. Friendly relations with other countries. Sovereignty and integrity of India. Friendly relations with other countries. Public order. Public order. Whatever, decency, morality, contempt of court, anything, 3-4, etc. You don't have to remember, you don't have to write everything in mains. Decency or morality or contempt of court, anything, etc. Fine, that means it is also subjected to reasonable. That is what you called as what do you understand by freedom of speech and expression. The first subpart is done. Now what is it? Does it cover? Does Article 19 Clause 1 Subclause A cover hate speech? Does or is hate speech part of it? Anything you can write. Does Article 19 Clause 1 Subclause A cover hate speech? Now obviously will it cover hate speech? No, first define it. Hate speech refers to. Does Article 19 Clause 1 Subclause A cover hate speech? Below that, tell what do you mean by hate speech first, because that's a keyword. Remember, that's a, what do you call as this kind of formula you make it. In GS 1, 2, 3, 4, you're optional. When you have a keyword, what you should always tell the evaluator. Tell them what do you mean by that definition. What is hate speech? Generally you define hate speech. Hate speech refers to. Hate speech refers to any form of expression. Means what? Not necessarily speech. I mean what? Not necessarily verbal speech. It includes your articles, movies, everything. Any kind of expression which has a deliberate intention. Any kind of expression which has a deliberate intention. Which has a deliberate intention to harm another community. Which has a deliberate intention to harm another community by spreading hatred. The deliberate intention to harm another community by spreading hatred on the grounds of or related to anything. On the grounds of which one? Caste, religion, gender, language, ethnicity, etc. On the grounds of caste, religion, gender, language, ethnicity, etc. So that is the definition part. What do you mean by hate speech? Got it? in IPC or under IPC, various sections are there that obviously you can't recall. Under IPC, hate speech is a punishable offence. Under IPC provisions, hate speech is a punishable offence. That means jail term is there. It is a punishable offence. Alright, you have defined what you mean by that. Now, what is the question they are asking? Does it cover freedom of speech and expression? Obviously, it doesn't cover. Tell 19 clause 1 subclause A does not include hate speech. 19 clause 1 subclause A does not include hate speech. Sir, how do you say that? Link it. As it can be restricted on the grounds of public order, incitement to offence. As it can be restricted on what grounds? You have already written the reasonable restrictions ground. It can be restricted on the grounds of A. One is public order, second one is which one? Incitement to offence. It can be restricted on the grounds of public order and incitement to offence. Correct? More than obvious. So, you have clearly told it does not cover. So, that word you should understand, underline, because they are clearly asking you, look at the demand, does it cover hate speech also? Whatever you have written there that it doesn't should be clearly underlined, that it does not cover. So, because evaluator will be looking for those things, that was the demand. Then you have to tell Supreme Court also in Pravasi Balai Sangatan case. Supreme Court also in the Pravasi Balai Sangatan case. BHALA, Pravasi Balai, BHALA Sangatan case, underline the case again. Keywords, keep on underlining, it should happen automatically. You can't come back and underline, don't think that in mind. First of all, finishing paper itself is difficult. There I will give last 10 minutes, I will come and underline. Those are all 10th and 12th. Finishing itself is difficult. So, coming back, underlining doesn't work so easily. Fine. Supreme Court in the Pravasi Balai Sangatan case, what has it done? Has declared that same freedom of speech and expression does not include hate speech. Has declared that freedom of speech and expression does not include hate speech. Has declared that freedom of speech and expression does not include hate speech. Clear? If you want just another point, Law Commission has suggested strict punishment. Law Commission has suggested a strict punishment and a separate law, because as of now it is dealt under IPC. What is Law Commission suggesting? Make a separate law. It has recommended a separate law and strict punishment for hate speech. Now you don't have it, but they have recommended it. Has recommended strict punishment and a separate law for hate speech. Clear? So subpart 1, subpart 2. Now what is subpart 3? Now make that subheading. What should be the subheading then? The words in that subpart should reflect. Put the subheading, why films or reasons for treating films differently. Or grounds, whatever you can tell. Why films are treated differently is the question. Reasons for treating films differently. Reasons for treating the film differently. Now first what you have to tell then? Now first what you have to tell is, how is it treated differently? Then what you have to tell? Why is it treated differently? Now how is it treated differently? You logically think. How do you think films are treated differently? CBFC, now look at it. If you want to release a film, what do you have to do? You can't release just like that in theatres and all. You have to get it certified. Now let's say you want to publish your newspaper articles. Every day you get Hindu, Indian Express, this, that, everything. Is it censored? Does it go to a film certification? There is nothing like that. Your print media has no certification. Automatically it keeps, Press Council of India, there is a body like that. But it all happens after you have published. But how does film happen? Before it is released. You look at your social media, you have YouTube, you have WhatsApp, you name it, everything. Where is the pre-censorship? Where does it happen? Or pre-certification, where does it happen? Nowhere. Only for films it is there. First tell that, how is it different? First that part you tell. Fine. Various forms of expression using various forms of expression through, you can tell. various forms of expression through print media, means your newspapers, various forms of expressions through print media, books, even books also you don't have pre-censorship, books, articles, various forms of expression through print media or books or articles or social media. Of course, now they are bringing digital media rules, everything, but it's not pre-censorship. Digital media or social media are all what? Are not subjected to certification before its release. Are not subjected to certification before its publication, release, whatever. Are not subjected to the certification before its release. However, now clarify. However, movies, or because they have used the word films, use the same word. However, films are subjected to certification process. Right? What is the point? Subjected to certification process through CBFC or by CBFC. Subjected to the certification process by CBFC under Cinematograph Act. Now underline CBFC, Cinematograph Act. Now if you write that, that shows evaluator that okay fine, you know specifics. By the CBFC, Central Board for Film Certification. Don't write censor board then, because censor board is not the official word. You should not use that words. You should only write CBFC. It is called as Central Board for Film Certification under Cinematograph Act. Underline that act. Clear? That is how is it treated differently. Now comes what is the point? Why? Fine. Why is it treated different? Or if you have already written the subpart, right? Now you write the below reasons. Or you can just write this is because. This is because. That means reasons. This is because. Now why do you think films are treated differently? Yeah. Just try to generate various grounds. Or at least what are the assumptions? Yeah. Film being an audiovisual medium. This is because films or film being an audiovisual medium has greater impact on a common man. Films being an audiovisual medium has a greater impact on a common man. Has a greater impact on a common man. And that is one point. Second, point number two. Point number two. Films have greater reach compared to other forms of expression. It can be book or an article or anything. Film will always have a greater reach. Films will have a greater reach with the mass, to the mass, compared to other forms of expression. Films will have greater reach to the mass compared to other forms of expression. Right? Now, because of the first 2 points, that is having a greater impact and greater reach, what it can create? Films have a potential to create stereotypes. Films have a potential to create stereotypes and sometimes disturb public order too. To create stereotypes and sometimes create or sometimes disturb public order too. And sometimes disturb public order too. Fine. And then as it has global reach, because it spreads overall, as it has global reach, what it can also do? It can create a positive or negative image of India. As it has a global reach, it can create a positive or a negative image of India. It can create a positive or negative image of India. This is why is it treated differently, reasons. But sometimes what it can also happen, again, always you should not write one part. That means whatever you have written the point, it's like what? Yes sir, it should happen. But what is the sometimes misuse is what? So many things they'll cut. However, there are criticisms. That CBFC misuses its power. CBFC misuses its power thereby violating, same, freedom of speech. Repeat those words. CBFC misuses its power, thereby violating freedom of speech and expression. Thereby violating the freedom of speech and expression. Fine. Fine. You can also write, for example, recent controversies related to Padmavat movie, Udta Punjab, etc. In the last 4 or 5 years, you can say controversies related to the Padmavat movie, Udta Punjab, etc. Fine. Continue. To have a balance, or means to achieve a balance, you can say. To achieve a balance, Sham-Benegal committee recommendations. To achieve a balance between what? Should the movies get released, whatever can you want, you can tell, or restrictions. To achieve a balance, Sham-Benegal committee. Sham-Benegal is a very famous director, if you have known, underline that. Sham-Benegal committee recommendations should be implemented. So that freedom of speech and expression is not compromised. To ensure a balance, Sham-Benegal committee recommendation should be implemented so that freedom of speech and expression is not compromised. Fine. Now you go through the structure, you look at the subparts of the question. How you have written those points, you will understand. This is not a repeated question, but freedom of speech and expression is repeated. One or other way it will come back to you. Now, if you want to bring holistic, because hate speech anyhow you have already written, because there itself you wrote about, for the subpart itself you wrote Supreme Court, what has it told in Pravasi Balai Sangathan, Law Commission, what has it told? I think it's more than enough. Or else if it was only about hate speech, then the conclusion should also have been only about hate speech. Because hate speech you have written already separately, you look at there, before you wrote about films. Then here you have broadly written about, you brought back the keywords related to freedom of speech and expression. Well, because both are about different things. One is hate speech, second one is movie. Hate speech separately you wrote, films differently you wrote. So more than enough. Is it clear? So how you have to keep on addressing each and every keywords. Fine. And whatever keyword they have used in the question, that should get repeated throughout your answer. One or other way. Fine. Because that's a kind of, psychologically you are telling the evaluator that, see, whatever I am trying to write, everything is in and around the same keyword I am writing. I am not deviating from your demand. That is a psychological message you are playing with him. Right? Yeah. Then, this is a very broad question, you leave that. Now let's, at least this you have to discuss. Because this, if you have seen even now recently also, government is trying to bring this back. See, again related to freedom of speech and expression. 19 clause 1 subclause A. At least I think it is the third question we are writing, and 21 is second 2 times. So 19 and 21 is where you have all the question. Other things you just wrote it so that you understand all those broader aspects. Because that year 2013 you had a Shreya Singhal judgment, hence you have this. Discuss section 66A IT Act with reference to its alleged violation of 19. Now, it's a very famous provision. Can anybody try to recall what is section 66A? Because it's again technical, you should first tell what you mean by section 66A. Without telling what you mean by section 66A, if you write points, nothing will work. Fine. So, what is section 66A? Please tell. What is it about? You will understand that the moment you write, you will understand. Section 66A of Information Technology Act. Section 66A of Information Technology Act. Information Technology Act provided that any form of expression through an ICT device, means it can be your computers, laptops, mobiles, is that anything, any form of expression through an ICT device which tries to create annoyance, means you are annoying someone. Annoying means what? Kind of disturbing, something like that, which tries to create annoyance or inconvenience or offense. Any kind of annoyance or inconvenience or offense, underline those keywords again, that's where the game is. Inconvenience, annoyance and offense will be considered as a criminal offense. So that means if you are trying to annoy anybody, create inconvenience to anybody, what will they consider it as? Will be considered as a criminal offense and punishable with up to 3 years jail term. It will be considered as a criminal offense, punishable with imprisonment up to 3 years or fine. So anything can happen, or both also, whatever, you just write that, up to 3 years of imprisonment or fine. See, if you write that itself, imagine how many will write that. If you write it, evaluator is convinced that you are, the moment you write that, it's convinced you are going to get 4 marks if it is a 10 marker. Then will he give you, because automatically if you write that, easily you can generate points now. Now 4 is fixed. Now later will it go to 5 or not depends on how beautifully you structure your words, the keywords that you use, the presentation aspect, all that matters on 4 to 5 will you go or will you stick to 4. Clear? This was the point. Now the question, I mean, what is the context? Supreme Court in, below that, Supreme Court in Shreya Singhal case, underline that case. Supreme Court in Shreya Singhal case declared section 66A as, Supreme Court in Shreya Singhal case declared section 66A as unconstitutional. Section 66A as unconstitutional for violating freedom of speech and expression, that is Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause A. Freedom of speech and expression, that is Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause A. So this is the context, fine. So that it is violating. Now what you have to tell? Now what you have to tell is significance of the judgment, or how does it violate anything. Significance of the judgment, or you can say how section 66A violates, because they have used that keyword. Section 66A, discuss it with respect to its alleged violation, you can use the same keyword, write other subpart also. One is significance of judgment. If they have asked about judgment, what is the word they are using here? With respect to violation, so put that same heading itself. Section 66A with respect to violation of Article 19. Section 66A with respect to violation of Article 19. Fine, obvious it is. You can write those arguments. First one, A. According to Supreme Court, so what is the words they have used in 66A? Annoyance, inconvenience, all those things. The terms, according to Supreme Court, the terms annoyance, inconvenience, offensive are all vague. Core argument, what are those words? Even morning you wrote, what are those words? Are vague. They are vague. Now automatically when it is vague, continue the word. What will happen? Chances of misinterpretation and misuse is very high. Hence, chances of misinterpretation and misuse is very high. Hence, chances of misinterpretation and misuse is very high. Fine. 2. Second point. It will have, or section 66A has a chilling effect on 19 clause 1 subclause A. Violates, that is. Section 66A has a chilling effect. These are all common words that you have to use everywhere. When the moment it comes vague, tell it is misinterpreted, misused. The moment it is violating something, tell it will have a chilling effect on freedom of speech and or 19 clause 1 subclause A. It will have a chilling effect on 19 clause 1 subclause A. Fine. Now then, what is it? It's a kind of criminal offense. So chances are what? Enforcement, that is police, law enforcement agencies or police. Police has higher chance of misusing it. Police has higher chance of misusing it. Police has higher chance of misusing it, thereby violating or thereby affecting the opposition and press. Police has a higher chance because ministers will tell it, obviously you may have to arrest someone. Police has a higher chance of misusing it, thereby violating or thereby affecting whom? Opposition and the media, press. And then section 66A does not have any procedural safeguard. Means what? On what basis will you arrest him or who will give you the permission? There is nothing like that. Section 66A does not have any procedural safeguards. Underline the word procedural safeguards. Does not have any procedural safeguards. Sir, what do you mean by procedural safeguards, sir? Like permission of Government of India before registering a case. Like permission of center, that is Government of India, before registering a case. Some kind of safeguards should be there. You don't have anything like that. Then it is not in tune with the global norms. It is not in tune with the global standards, global norms. It is not in tune with the global norms. Clear? Now this is why is it, but you can also argue, or you can say relevance of section 66A. That means why it was needed. Relevance of section 66A. According to the government we are telling. Fine, you can say that. We can write that line itself. Government has argued that section, just write yes 66A. Government has argued that section 66A is necessary. Government has argued that section 66A is necessary to control the misuse of ICT. To control the misuse of ICT. That means information, ICT devices, ICT information, whatever it is. Obviously. Now, again you can, what is it? 19 clause 1 subclause A, what is it not? It is not absolute, hence what you can do? Hence reasonable restrictions can be imposed. 19 clause 1 subclause A is not absolute, hence reasonable restrictions can be imposed. Reasonable restrictions can be imposed. Fine, that is another one. Then the present social media, which is all based on night same only. The present social media has huge impact. Present social media has huge impact on social order or social peace, whatever, on social order. Because of what? Because of its multiplier effect in short time. Because of its multiplier effect. Imagine how quickly it spreads. Because of its multiplier effect in short time. Fine, this is what it says. But obviously, because of the Supreme Court has said that, what do you have to tell? Conclude it saying, however, section 66A violates 19 clause 1 subclause A. Section 66A violates 19 clause 1 subclause A. Hence it cannot continue. That's because anyhow Supreme Court has said it. Hence it cannot continue. And in addition, what you have to do? In addition, because it is part of which act? IT Act was passed in 2000. In addition, IT Act which was passed in 2000 has to be amended. In addition, IT Act which was passed in 2000 should be amended to make it in tune with the present challenges. Because those are all world provisions, it doesn't work today. IT Act which was passed in 2000 has to be amended to make it in tune with the present reality, present challenges. Clear? Now, this is your 66A, 19 and all those things. Clear? Now, if you can recall in section this IT Act, there is a provision related to something called as intermediaries. Have you heard that? They tell it as intermediary. Intermediary means your platforms, Google, Facebook, whatever you call them as, WhatsApp, Instagram, everything. Under this IT Act, there is a protection to the intermediary. What do you mean by that? In simple word, it means, let's say some people have spread fake news on WhatsApp. Now, who will not be made liable here? WhatsApp will not be liable because it's an intermediary. It is not spreading it. It has just given a platform. So, it will get protection. That provision is also there under that. Under section 66, under IT Act, there is also another provision wherein if, for example, if government feels, okay, this is something like fake news, what government can do? Government can take that information out of the platforms. That is called as blocking the access to the public at large. That provision is also there. Just add it in margin, just extra point related to section 6, this IT Act, not section 66. This is not related to the answer, just an extra provision. IT Act has provisions. IT Act has provision to, IT Act has the provision to remove the content. IT Act has the provisions to remove the content from digital media. Has the provision to remove the content from social media and block public access. And block public access. And block the public access. That is one. Then IT Act provides protection for intermediaries. When they call it as safe harbor provision. IT Act provides protection for the intermediaries, from any kind of legal liability. Provides protection for the intermediaries from any kind of legal liability, means punishment kind of event, from any kind of legal liability. First tell first what do you mean by intermediaries? Who are intermediaries here? Here intermediaries refers to platforms like Google, WhatsApp, Facebook, etc. Here intermediaries refer to platforms like Google, Facebook, WhatsApp, etc. Fine. Now what is it also called as? It is called as safe harbor provision. Safe means what? You are safe. You will not have any liability. It is also called as safe harbor provision. It is also called as safe harbor provision. Fine. So those are all the keywords that you should know about IT Act. Then remember, just not related to IT Act, but there is another provision. What is it called as? Internet shutdown. Because that also sometimes you may have to use somewhere. You don't know depending on the answer question. Write some few points about internet shutdown. Internet shutdown. So how does internet shutdown happen in India? Or how can you define internet shutdown? It refers to internet shutdown. It refers to temporary shutdown, means blocking. It refers to temporary shutdown of access to, telecom and internet services in a particular area. It refers to the temporary shutdown, temporary suspension, you can use the word. Temporary suspension of the access to telecom and internet services in a particular area, region. How is it done? It is done under, because it is not done under IT Act, don't get confused. It is done under Telegraph Act. It is done under Telegraph Act. Underline it, keep underlining. It is done under Telegraph Act and Temporary Suspension of the Telecom Services Rules 2017. Telegraph Act and temporary suspension of telecom services rules. Underline both. Temporary suspension of telecom services rules 2017. That rule itself is made under Telegraph Act. Temporary suspension of the telecom services rules 2017. Clear? Now that is the point. Then, however, Supreme Court in Anuradha Bhashin case has provided certain guidelines. Supreme Court in Anuradha Bhashin case. Remember morning you wrote right to internet Anuradha Bhashin. Supreme Court in Anuradha Bhashin case has provided certain guidelines to restrict the misuse of internet shutdown provision. Has provided certain guidelines to restrict the misuse of internet shutdown provision. Restrict the misuse of internet shutdown provision. Got it? Like what? For example, or what are those guidelines? For instance, internet shutdown can only be done by Union Home Secretary, or based on the permission of, you can say. It can only be done on the permission of Union Home Secretary. It can only be done on the permission of Union Home Secretary. Union Home Secretary too. It can only be done for a specific time period. They have put like 1 week, 10 days, they have put the rules. It can only be done for a specific time period. It can only be done for specific time period. Then it should be a measure of last resort. Means what? First step itself you should not shut it down because it violates freedom of speech and expression. It should be a measure of last resort. It should be a measure of last resort. You understand what you mean by means after okay, you don't have an option, you go for it. Don't go directly for it. Clear? This is about your freedom of speech and expression or anything related to that, because you may anytime get a question on that. Internet shutdown. Or at least if you don't, you can use it anywhere. Fine. Then I think it is your Diwali one. You can just try to structure it. We will not write it because anyhow we have written those points. Tell me the structure. Now look at what is it tell. Does the right to clean environment entail? Because that means what they are asking is, because we have right to clean environment, do you think it's because of that we can put legal regulations on burning crackers during Diwali? Does it entail means does it include? Discuss in the light of Article 21, because Article 21 includes which one? Right to clean environment. Discuss in the light of Article 21 of the Constitution and judgments of Apex Court. Apex Court means the Supreme Court judgments. Now, how will you structure it? First, in the beginning, what do you have to write? First, write about right to clean environment. Fine, because it is about that. First, you have to tell is, yes, right to clean environment is already considered as part of Article 21, right to dignified life. Through various Supreme Court judgment, you know that MC Mehta cases, this, that you have to tell. That is the beginning. Then what they are telling, do you think it should include regulations on burning crackers? That part you have to, from both the angles you have to understand. So, do you think it should we should regulate the burning of crackers during Diwali? If the argument is yes, first you tell arguments for yes sir. Yes sir, we have to include it. Of course you have to include it. What is the reasons for it? Because it leads to obviously too much of pollutions. One is air pollution, second one is noise pollution also. Hence violates both Article 21. Right to health also gets violated. What do you call as this? Right to clean environment will also get violated. Then in firecrackers, remember the industry is not so regulated. Hence what happens, too much of pollutants, this, that, everything is there. All that will have a negative impact, no doubt about it. Fine. And yes, obviously we have, it's a part of our culture, it's part of our festival, all those things. But all those things are all not what? Your religion also, your culture also. What is it also? It's also not absolute. What you can do? You can put certain restrictions on larger public cause. Because if you can recall, Article 25 itself, when you say culture or religion, itself is subjected to reasonable restrictions on public order, morality, health. Now, is clean environment not part of your health? It is. Hence, you can say yes. These are all arguments for which you can say yes, you can restrict it. Now, what is the arguments you can say? No, sir, how can you restrict it? What arguments you can use? First, of course, it is part of your Article 25 culture and all those things. Then, it is not something which happens throughout the year. It happens because clearly they are telling Diwali crackers. It doesn't happen throughout the year. Fine, it happens only in the part of the year. So, hence what do you have to do? You have to focus on broader provisions. Like what? For example, first point what you have to do is, for example, these organizations like PISO, remember Petroleum Explosive Safety Organizations. they have to first give certain clear-cut regulations for firecrackers. What they have to do, wherever you have all those, whatever lead, arsenic, mercury, so many things are there. Those things should not be in these crackers, first point. Two, what they can also put, the decibel level can be regulated, means to what extent the sounds, everything is, that one you can regulate. Then three, the concept of green crackers, all those things you have, that you can do it. So the point is, you cannot completely outrightly ban it. That's not possible. Even Supreme Court has said that you cannot ban it because it's an integral part of our culture, which is for thousands of years or probably hundreds of years. Fine, it's integral part. You can't ban it absolutely. What you can do? Certain restrictions you can put, or rather than restriction you can take, you can regulate the industry. So that what happens, your right to clean environment, your right to health and your cultural aspect all are balanced. Because if you try to uphold only one, the other thing will cause unnecessary misuse, unnecessary problems. Understanding? So these specific issues like PISO, what do you call as this, regulation of firecracker industry, all those things if you write green crackers, that means your answer is complete. If you only write in general about environment, something like that, of course that is the core part, but how do you balance it? Balancing part is also important. Clear? So that is what you call it as, because recently also Supreme Court talked about it. Nowhere back fire complete ban. This question will not get repeated, don't worry, because this is a very specific question, but still keep it in mind. So did you understand how you can balance that? So I think that question is fine. Now, but this one, okay, before this, let's look at other questions related to rights. Open your, what is this? We have to go for it. Hmm? This one, PC. What I'll do is, I have to call him, where is it? Folder open ಮಾಡುವ desktop ಇದು ಮಾಡು. ಓಕೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಫುಲ್ ಸ್ಕ್ರೀನ್ ಬಿಡು ಗೊತ್ತಾಯ್ತು, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಫುಲ್ ಸ್ಕ್ರೀನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಸಾಕ್ತಿತ್ತು. Okay, this is the sedition provision that we have discussed. Look at this question. So this is another question we have made on DPSP, but before that, I've made 2-3 questions on rights, basic structure. Now this one. Look at the question. So very simple. What they're telling is two aspects. What they're asking about, what are the legal provisions related to abortion in India, and arguments for, arguments against abortion as a part of reproductive rights. Arguments for, arguments against. Remember the landmark Roe versus Wade judgment, Supreme Court, US Supreme Court. Because in 1973, when India gave Keshwanda Bharti case, that means the same year in US Supreme Court has said that the right to abortion is a fundamental right. This was told by US Supreme Court in 1973. Exactly 50 years later, in 2022, you can say, 2022 US Supreme Court said that it is not a fundamental right. Because it told that it is not a fundamental right, so now automatically restrictions are more. In the context of the reversal of the Roe versus Wade judgment by US Supreme Court, write a note on the various legal provisions related to abortion in India. That's your first subpart. Note on various legal provisions related to abortion in India. What is the second subpart is obvious. Various arguments related to right to abortion as part of women's reproductive rights. Now again, you can't define anything here, then you have to tell the context, or you can say origin, contemporary, anything. Better note down this also, because as I told, just because it's in your materials, you will not read that. It's better you keep noting it down. It's simple context of right to abortion, arguments for, arguments against. Now because the question is Roe versus Wade, start with that itself first. Write the question first. Fine. So remember I told you, first is ask yourself, can I define anything here? You can't define Roe versus Wade. So then what do you have to do? Contextualize it. US Supreme Court had declared, forget about what they have written in answer, that's the content part, I will tell you how to structure it much better. Anyhow, points will be always be there, we'll look into it. US Supreme Court had declared right to abortion as a fundamental right. US Supreme Court had declared right to abortion as a fundamental right in its landmark judgment. Had declared right to abortion as a fundamental right in its landmark judgment in Roe versus Wade 1973. In its landmark judgment in the Roe versus Wade case 1973. So underline that Roe versus Wade case 1973. But now recently what they did? Recently in 2022, US Supreme Court has reversed its own judgment, overturned. Recently in 2022, US Supreme Court has reversed its own judgment, or its previous judgment, whatever, reversed its previous judgment, fine, thereby making it no longer a fundamental right. Has reversed its own judgment, thereby making it no longer a fundamental right. So it's no longer a fundamental right. Now when you are no longer a fundamental right, what will happen? Hence multiple restrictions will be imposed on women's right to abortion. So this is the context. Hence multiple restrictions, regulations will be imposed on women's right to abortion. Got it? So this is the context. Now what they are telling? What is the first part they are asking? write a note on various legal provisions related to abortion in India. So put that subheading. Legal provisions related to abortion in India. Legal provisions related to abortion in India. Fine. Even in India, there was an issue. They have written that the Supreme Court of India recently allowed an unmarried woman to end her pregnancy even at 24 weeks. Though the Supreme High Court had told note all those things, that's another context they have told. Now look at the legal provisions. Now this is your legal provision. What is the legal provision? That means what are the laws that you have, right? That section 312 IPC. Section 312 IPC. It criminalizes. It criminalizes voluntary miscarriage. Criminalizes voluntarily causing miscarriage. It means miscarriage means you went and deliberately got the fetus aborted. Criminalizes voluntarily causing the miscarriage. Got it. Then the landmark one, MTP Act, Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act. The recent amendment you have to write. The original act is 1971. MTP Act, Medical Termination of Pregnancy. If you want, you can write. The act was passed in 1971 based on the recommendation of Shantilal Committee. MTP Act, Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act. Under that, first you have to write, the original act was passed in 1971. Originally it was passed in 1971 on the recommendation of Shantilal Committee. Not a landmark one. If you can recall, it's fine, or else it's okay. But this you have to write. Recently it is amended in 2021. Recently it is amended in 2021. Now under that, what is the provision? A. Under that A, abortion allowed until 20 weeks. Abortion allowed until 20 weeks. Abortion allowed until 20 weeks on the recommendation of one registered medical practitioner. Allowed until 20 weeks on the recommendation of, that means on the advice of one doctor, registered medical practitioner. Just write doctor also, it's fine, on the advice of one doctor. Then between 20 to 24 weeks, earlier it was only 22, now they have increased it to 24. Between 20 to 24 weeks, you need the opinion of whom? Two doctors. 20 to 24 weeks, two doctors. Beyond 24 weeks, a state level advisory, medical advisory board. Beyond 24 weeks also it's allowed, but you need whose advice here? State level medical advisory board, on the advice of state level medical advisory board. And the two extraordinary provisions of which one? For the first time, the act allows abortion for unmarried women also. For the first time, because till now it was only for married women. Now first time it is allowing for unmarried. For the first time, abortion is allowed for unmarried women. For the first time it is allowed for unmarried women. Okay, those are all the keywords, allowed for unmarried women. First time unmarried women is a keyword. Then the next one, up to 24 weeks, this one, up to 24 weeks, abortion is allowed for rape survivors, minors, mentally ill women, etc. There are 7 categories of women. You don't have to remember all those 7. Up to 24 weeks, abortion is allowed for victims of rape, mentally ill women, minors, etc. Victims of rape, mentally ill women, minors, etc. Fine, these are all newly added provisions. Unmarried women, this and everything. Fine. So now you have completed which part? It was a question say, write a note on various legal provisions related to abortion in India. That is what you have written. Fine. Now comes, what is the next part? Discuss various arguments related to declaration of right to abortion as women's right. Put that heading. Arguments for right to abortion. Or you can put a broad subheading as right to abortion. Under that you can write arguments for, arguments against, that's left to you. Arguments for right to abortion. So try to generate the points. Why do you think abortion should be declared as a fundamental right or part of right? Of course, you have to tell both the angles. You should not tell only yes sir, no sir. In mains, you have to write both the angles. What are the arguments for? Obviously, what is the arguments for? Bodily autonomy, personal autonomy. That means it is her choice. Freedom of, that is first argument. Arguments for, you are writing. It is part of women's. It is part of women's bodily autonomy. It is part of women's bodily autonomy and thereby reproductive rights. So let her choose is the point. It is part of her bodily autonomy and thereby reproductive rights. Then to what you can tell? Morning itself you wrote, it is part of Article 21, or you can say it is part of right to privacy, that is in bracket Article 21. It is part of right to privacy, Article 21. Part of right to privacy, Article 21. Fine, that is another one. Next point, you can say, look at it. You can write the case, Suchita Srivastav case. Reproductive autonomy is a part of personal liberty under 21. Reproductive autonomy is a part of personal liberty under Article 21. Is part of personal liberty under Article 21. Suchita Srivastav case. And then religious, cultural, or you can say restrictions or norms. Religious and cultural norms cannot violate, cannot take away. Religious and cultural norms or religious, whatever, religious and cultural norms cannot take away the freedom of choice, cannot take away the freedom of choice of the women. Take away the freedom of choice of the women. Then the global norm. A lot of democratic countries have allowed, abortion as a fundamental right. A lot of countries have allowed abortion as a right, as a part of women's right, anything. As part of women's right. Fine, that is another one. Then you also have other things. Write the points. Just write those words. India is a signatory to CEDAW, ICCPR, ICSCR, which allows or which recognizes women's reproductive rights. India is a signatory to CEDAW, Convention on Elimination of All Kinds of Discrimination Against Women. India is a signatory of CEDAW, ICCPR, ICSCR. We have already known that, International Covenant on Economic, Social, Cultural Rights, all of which recognizes which one? Which recognizes women's reproductive rights. Which recognizes women's reproductive rights. Fine. So that is arguments for. Then arguments against. What is arguments against? Automatically, obviously, you can say, what is it? A. Killing of fetus. Killing of fetus is a kind of murder as it has life. This is another argument, counter arguments. Killing of fetus is a form of murder as it has life. Killing of fetus is a form of murder as it has life. Fine. Abortion leads to, you can say that, see, or unsafe abortions leads to 20% of all maternal deaths. Unsafe abortions lead to 20% of all the maternal death. In bracket MOHFW, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare data, leads to 20% of all the maternal death. Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Then India has 70% shortage of OBG, means obstetrics and gynecologists, surgeons in rural areas. So how do you provide that facility in rural area then? India has a shortage of 70% gynecology specialists. That means those who perform those operations, OBG, what they call it as. Shortage of 70% OBG specialists in rural area. Then who will obviously then they'll go to the cheap quacks, means people who don't have the specialization. Obviously that leads to unsafe abortions, deaths. Fine. Then yeah, that's a good point. What is the point? Look at the last point. It may lead to, who knows, misuse of technology may lead to female feticides, thereby affecting sex ratio. Means female, you know that, I don't have to explain. PCPNDT Act in bracket you can say. Misuse of the technology may lead to female feticides affecting sex ratio. May lead to female feticides affecting sex ratio. Affecting sex ratio. In bracket you can write, violates PCPNDT Act, Preconception and Prenatal Diagnostic Technologies Act. Female feticides affecting sex ratio, in bracket violating PCPNDT Act. So you don't have to write full form, it's a big one. In simple terms, whatever technologies, remember when you go to whatever the diagnostics, all those things, now they will not tell you the gender of the fetus and everything because of the PCPNDT Act. Preconception, Prenatal Diagnostic Technologies Act. And that is another one. Another argument which you can use is what? Western values, the counter argument which you can use, Western values may not suit Indian value system. Means in West it might be fair enough, but just because they follow it in West, should we follow it in India also? Western values may not suit the Indian realities or Indian value system. May not suit the Indian value system. Fine. Just copy paste the conclusion because I have typed it. So because anyhow the issue is being discussed multiple times. It is an integral part of women's reproductive rights, we understand, but what we need to do, we need to increase access to quality healthcare, or else unsafe abortions will happen. And measures should also be taken to prevent the misuse of the legal provisions. Is female feticide that kind of a one? Clear? That is another fundamental rights issue which is pending. Another one which is being discussed is which one? Which is more than obvious. copy the question. I have made it more broader. Because again, Supreme Court still not has given the judgment. The discussions are going on. I think they have reserved the judgment. So whenever it comes, you have to see. Because I thought they may ask a question on transgender itself. That's why I made them write a note on the key judgments related to trans. Then you write arguments pro argue. That's more than obvious. So first subpart you should talk about key judgments related to transgenders right. Second, arguments for. Third, arguments against. Then conclusion. Done. Again, because you can't define you so easily what do you mean by same-sex marriage, everything. So write the context again. What is the context then? Supreme Court is looking into the issue of same-sex marriage. Supreme Court is looking into the same issue of same-sex marriage as a legal provision under Special Marriage Act. It is looking into the issue of the same-sex marriage as a legal provision under, that means can we allow same-sex marriage under Special Marriage Act is the question. Supreme Court is looking into the issue of same-sex marriage as a legal provision under Special Marriage Act 1954. Special Marriage Act 1954. Now, the core point, if you don't know, sir, what is mean by this Special Marriage Act, just to have a broad idea, remember, for example, for Hindus, Hindus means here Hindu, Buddhist, Jain, Parsi, Sikh. See, these four communities, they have already codified the personal law. That's where you have the Hindu code bills, where you have Hindu Marriage Act, Hindu Property Succession Act, Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act, Hindu Guardianship Act. That is the 4 acts. Then the 5th act is your Special Marriage Act. Special Marriage Act is for whom? Let's say, for example, for Muslims, for Christians, for Parsis, they have their personal law. Personal law means what? Under their Shariat law and all those things, they will register their marriage. Let's assume there is a Muslim couple. Fine, they don't want their personal laws to apply to them. Then what they can do? It's not mandatory. You have a provision. You can come and register your marriage under Special Marriage Act. Fine. Then the Muslim personal law will not apply to you. It's not mandatory. Then Special Marriage Act will apply. For example, if you don't know, for example, recently there was a couple in Kerala which was in news. They were already married for 25-30 years. There was the movie related, the actors related couple. Both are Muslims only. They are married for 25-30 years and they had married under Muslim personal law. Now, what is the issue? Under Muslim personal law, if you don't know, the provision is the property will not just go to the children, it will also go to the cousins. Children can only get, I think, 50% or maximum, 40 or 50% only children will get. The rest will be shared with the cousins. Means what? Your cousins means, understand it, even they will also get the right to property. Now, these couple wanted their property to go only to their child, only to the children, whatever. Hence, what they did? They re-registered their marriage after 25-30 years under Special Marriage Act. Now, Muslim personal law will not apply to you. Which one will apply? Whatever the provision under the Special Marriage Act will apply to you. Now, the property entirely will go to their children. Now, let's see if you recall another one. Remember an actress called Swara Bhaskar. So, she, Hindi actress, she married a Muslim. Now, Hindu-Muslim marriage or whatever interreligious marriage, you can't register under Hindu Marriage Act. You have to register under which one? Special marriage. If a Hindu marriage, inter-caste within Hindu is different. In so many subcaste, lakhs of thousands of caste subcaste, that's different. Inter-religious marriage, you have to register under this. Special Marriage Act. Hindu marrying Muslim, Muslim marrying Christian, in this or whatever it is, you may reach under it. Now the point is what Supreme Court is looking into it. Now can we allow same-sex marriage also under which act? Special Marriage Act is the provision they are looking into it. That they have to, whatever, based on judgment you have to see. Now if you don't know the point, based on that, a lot of people said, so let's not directly go to same-sex marriage, because as of now in Indian context, the marriage is only allowed, heterosexual marriage is allowed. Means what? Male and female only is allowed. Same-sex marriage is not allowed. The homosexuality is decriminalized under which judgment? Navtej Johar case, section 377, that it is decriminalized. But same-sex marriage is not allowed. A lot of countries allow it. In US also they allow. I think in Australia they allow. New Zealand they allow. In so many, I think UK, I'm not sure. I think UK also they may allow. A lot of these democratic countries have already legalized it. Norway, Sweden, everybody have legalized it. That's why the issue has come to India now. Now hence a lot of people tell, let's not directly jump to same-sex marriage, let's find a middle path. The middle path is what you call it as, if you have not heard the word, called as civil union. Civil union is a middle path, means as of now we don't allow it completely. Now what they are telling, allow it completely. Now a lot of what people are telling is, you can't allow it completely, let's find a middle path called as civil union. Now what do you mean by civil union is that, it will not be considered as marriage, fine, but whatever, two gays, two lesbians, whatever you call them as, they can have a marriage. They can get, point is what, they will be considered as husband and wife, and those rights, everything you will get. So what do you mean by that right? For example, let's say, for example, in Hindu Marriage Act or Hindu Succession Act, they will tell, out of the husband's property, who will also get the share? The wife will also get a share. Now, how do you apply to same-sex marriage? You can apply, because the concept of husband and wife will not apply in same-sex marriage. How do you apply the same-sex marriage husband and wife concept? Then what do you have to do? You have to make it gender neutral, saying spouse. You have to change the law. Now for example, under that, like what do you call as this, under this divorce, all those things happen. Who will get the access, the right to the child? Mostly it goes in the favor of wife, or let's say mother. Now that also you have to reframe. You have to tell it as spouse then. All these have to change now. For example, under Factories Act, let's say for example, husband dies, the pension will go to the wife under the civil services rules, this, that, everything. Or let's say you are working in a company, Factories Act, Industries Act will apply. There if something happens and whatever the employee dies, the pension will go to so and so. Nominees, remember in insurance policy, all these points you have to reframe if you allow same-sex marriage now. Fine, hence there are other issues which are going on. Hence what we are telling is, we will allow all this compensation, property, everything will allow. Not through marriage, through a concept called as what? Civil union. Union means what? You stay together, you will get these rights, but we will not consider it as a marriage. Because if you consider it as a marriage, then the legality, sanctity will apply. Then a lot of people are telling it goes against cultural angle. We all know that culturally, socially, all those issues are going on. That's why a lot of people are telling this. And then there are also criticism. For example, the, what do you call as this, National Commission for Protection of Child Rights, NCCPR itself told that the children will have an impact on their psychological and mental health. That is their argument. A lot of people are telling it. They said that if the child is, because remember now, they can't have a child. They have to go for surrogacy or something else they have to go for. Then that provision you have to allow. These are all issues here. Obviously, right, you can't have a, those all issues will come up. So hence what they are telling is, that if both the, what do you call this, so-called partners, husband and wife or mother and father, what do you call them as, if both belong to the same gender, that is same sex, then the child's psychological health may be affected, is NCCPR telling. But the global arguments tell it is not necessary. For example, if you have seen the very famous article which came out was Vivek Kajju's article. Vivek Kajju is a former foreign secretary. His daughter, what is her name? Arundhati Kajju, I think. Arundhati Kajju and other people were there too. I forgot their names particularly. Both are lesbians. When what they are telling, they are the lawyers who are in fact were arguing in Supreme Court, calling for at least civil union, if not same-sex marriage. Now they have argued, who told you that it will affect more sexual, what do you call this, emotional or psychological health of children? Not necessary. Is the counter argument part, and they are giving their own article saying, look at the UNESCO has given a report, this so and so UNHRC has given a report. They are telling, NCCPR is using their own arguments. So all these are the arguments which are going on. the natural rights angle, the typical marriage definitions, the social angle, the rights angle, right to identity, gender identity, privacy, personal autonomy, all those things will come up here. Hence, the issue is of civil union, should we allow it or not. Got it? Yeah. Now, I think at least you got a broader angle. Now you look at it, because it's a issue is everybody is understanding same-sex marriage. They are not understanding what is civil union, what all impact it will have. This is the impact it will have. Fine. Now, what is the subpart? First subpart. Write a note on the judgments related to transgender rights. Again, as I said, I think you wrote a introduction, right? No, not it. Okay, fine. Now, make the first subpart. What is it? Judgments related to transgender rights. Transgender is a broader one, right? LGBTQIA, everything will come. Judgments related to the transgender rights. We'll write it as a chronology itself. Here they have typed it in different manner. Write it as a chronology. Fine, broader one, everything related to the transgender, homosexuality, everything. Fine, below that. First one is NAS Foundation case. NAZ, NAS Foundation case. NAS Foundation case. Delhi High Court decriminalized homosexuality. Section 377. Delhi High Court decriminalized homosexuality. Section 377. Then decriminalize homosexuality. Then Suresh Kumar Kaushal case. Suresh Kumar Kaushal case. What did Supreme Court do here? Supreme Court recriminalized. Supreme Court recriminalized homosexuality. Supreme Court recriminalized homosexuality. Then comes your landmark judgment. Navteej Singh Johar case. Supreme Court decriminalized homosexuality and declared it unconstitutional. Navteej Singh Johar case. Supreme Court read down, that is narrowed down. Decriminalized homosexuality and declared it unconstitutional. That means criminalization as unconstitutional. Fine. And what they also declared? Right to gender identity was declared as part of Article 21. Right to gender identity was declared as part of Article 21. Right to gender identity was declared as part of Article 21. Clear? That is one judgment. Then next judgment is what? NALSA Foundation or NALSA case, not foundation. NALSA, National Legal Services Authority. NALSA case, transgender community declared a third gender. Transgenders declared as a third gender. And what did Supreme Court add? Supreme Court also said that this community should be given welfare benefits like backward classes. Transgender community declared as third gender and they should be given welfare measures, welfare benefits. They should be given welfare benefits like backward classes, similar to backward classes. Right? So that is your first subpart. First, write arguments in favor. Arguments in favor of same-sex marriage. Fine. So, if you allow that, what is the first point? Non-recognition of the same-sex marriage amounts to discrimination that strikes at the root of dignity. Okay, fine. So that argument you can say. Non-recognition of same-sex marriage violates Article 14, Article 15. Non-recognition of same-sex marriage. Non-recognition of the same-sex marriage violates Article 14, Article 15. It violates Article 14 and Article 15. That is another one. Next point. Next point is, most of the developed countries have already allowed same-sex marriage. Most of the developed countries have legalized same-sex marriage. Most of the developed countries have legalized. Most of the developed countries have legalized same-sex marriage. And then, post Navtej Singh Johar judgment. Post Navtej Singh Johar judgment. Post Navtej Singh Johar judgment, same-sex marriage is a gradual progression, natural progression of LGBTQ rights. That means after that, that is the only thing which is pending. Post Navtej Singh Johar judgment, same-sex marriage is a natural progression of LGBTQ rights. LGBTQ rights. Fine. Legalization will allow, that means legalization of same-sex marriage. Legalization will allow surrogacy and adoption, or will provide surrogacy and adoption rights for same-sex couples. Because as of now, if you don't know, under the Surrogacy Act, same-sex couples cannot adopt a child, fine, or cannot get it through a surrogacy also, and nothing is allowed. So legalization will allow them to what? Will allow them the provision for surrogacy and adoption. In a way, what you can also link back to 21. It can also, or it is also part of Article 21, right to privacy. Right to privacy, right to live a dignified life. It is part of Article 21, that is right to privacy and dignified life. Right to privacy and dignified life. Fine, yeah. So another one. Next point. It allows, that means if you allow it, if you legally recognize it, it allows legal benefits like, that means as I said, husband, wife, insurance, tax, this and everything. It allows legal benefits like same property inheritance, tax benefits, adoption, medical rights, etc. All of that you will get. Insurance. It allows access to benefits related to insurance, tax, inheritance, adoption, etc. All of them will be allowed to you. Legal benefits, because if you don't have that, then all these things will obviously not come. Then now the arguments against. Automatically, what are the arguments against? Point number 1, Special Marriage Act. Special Marriage Act was passed for those marriages which are interreligious in nature. Special Marriage Act was passed for those marriages which is interreligious in nature, or to overcome personal law, or to bypass, or to overcome personal. That means if you don't want to register under your personal law, you can come here, or to overcome the personal law. Fine. If you allow this, what will happen? This creates, that means if you allow same-sex marriage, same-sex creates a new concept of marriage. Same-sex creates a new concept of marriage. Now what is the core argument then? This is the core argument again they use. Right to marry is not absolute, it can be subjected to laws in the legitimate interest of the state, because they want to they may have to balance so many things, is the counter argument they are using. Right to marry is not absolute, it can be subjected to various restrictions in the legitimate interest of the state. It is not absolute, it can be subjected to various restrictions in the interest of the state. In the interest of the state. Then, as said by NCCPR, National Commission for Protection of Children's Rights, as said by NCCPR, I think CRP, okay, National Commission for Protection of Child Rights, yeah, rights of the children. So, what do they tell? What does it tell? Yeah, children's emotional, psychological health may be affected in case of same-sex couples. As not suggested, as said by NCCPR, the child's emotional, psychological well-being may be affected. May be affected in case of same-sex couples. In case of the same-sex couples. And then what is the obvious counter-argument? Social cultural norms are based on heterosexual marriage. Social cultural norms, value system is based on heterosexual marriage. It is based on heterosexual marriage. That's what they call it as. Remember, a lot of people keep telling it that it is unnatural. Unnatural means because we have normally our all perceptions is based on heterosexual marriage. That's why they call it as unnatural. Right? That is another point. Next, what you can tell is, what is the other argument? Various laws have to be redrafted. Because as I said, everything you have is husband, wife, husband, wife. Various laws have to be redrafted to accommodate same-sex marriage. Everything, right, from marriage, Hindu Marriage Act, this, that, everything have to be redrafted. Various laws have to be redrafted to allow same-sex marriage or to accommodate same-sex marriage. To accommodate same-sex marriage. Fine. So, how do you conclude? Write the second one. Any legislative or a judicial decision must consider any legislative or a judicial decision on same-sex marriage. Just copy that second statement. Right. So, that you fix it. If any question on same-sex marriage, until Supreme Court judgment is there. Supreme Court if tells something, automatically you back it. That's it. Whatever they tell, just back it. Got it? Yeah. So, now in bracket, write that. What is the mid path here we are trying to say? Civil union. Civil union is a middle path that is being discussed. Civil union is a middle path that is being discussed. It is a middle path which is being discussed. What this will not give? This will not give a legal recognition of same-sex marriage. It is a one step below. This will not provide legal recognition to same-sex marriage. This will not provide legal recognition to same-sex marriage, but what it allows. However, it allows such couples to live together. It does not allow legal recognition of same-sex marriage, but it allows them to live together. It allows them to live together and also enjoy various benefits. Remember, tax, this, that, whatever the spouse concept, that we will allow, but officially we will not recognize it as a marriage. It does not allow legal recognition of marriage, but it allows the couples to enjoy various benefits related to, as I said, insurance, surrogacy, this, that, everything. Surrogacy, it is not sure that they have to decide, but tax benefits, insurance, this, that. So, husband death, this, that, all those things are everything you will get, right? But that legitimacy will not be there. So, hence what they are telling is, we do not want this, we need legitimacy, is what the community is arguing. But that depends, we have to see how it goes. A lot of people tell judiciary should not interfere, let the parliament make the law. Why are you interfering is one argument. So, but judiciary tells you can't leave it to the parliament because we know parliament will not make it, because it's a very cultural imagine, just look at how culturally sensitive it is. Hence, they will not make it, we will interfere is what they are trying to say. So, we have to wait for the judgment, we will see what they will tell. Will it allow under LGBT or not? Yeah, the other related to fundamental rights is this one. So, write the question. We will take some 10 minutes break and then we will continue till maybe 8:30, 8:45. Write the question. So, can we use abbreviations like SC Supreme Court in answer writings? As far as possible, try to avoid it. It's better you write Supreme Court itself. Remember, like for example, GOVT, writing all those things, government GOVT not allowed. If you want, you can write GOI in capitals, that's fair enough. But GOVT, all those Constitution, CONST, underline will not work, because obviously in mains it will not work. And Supreme Court SC also will not work. It's better you always write Supreme Court. Unless, okay, time is not there, all those things, then it's a different issue. And again, I have made it as a broader issue. In the context of the EWS issue, enlist the various constitutional provisions related to reservation, write a note on Supreme Court's various judgments related to it. When so many are there, obviously we know reservation concept. Last year also I had framed this question, but I had framed it in the context of Maratha reservation judgment. Remember last year Maratha reservation case was there. They did not ask it because reservation issue normally in mains they don't touch. They mostly stick to 19 and 21 because it's probably it's a kind of sensitive issue, that's why UPSC doesn't touch that. Whatever. So just write the question and take some 10 minutes break and come back. Which one is this? Constitutionalism. This is because now frame the answer. Reservation refers to, because it is about reservation, of course you can define the keyword. So just copy it. I think that's it. The road I have reframed and written it. I have written it. It's not like copy pasted definition, just paraphrased. If you want vulnerable sections, you can add like OBC, SC, ST, EWS. It is a form, so that has become from, it is a form of affirmative action to correct the historical injustice. So keywords, affirmative action, injustice, vulnerable sections. And same copy. Next point. Only it is called as Janhit Abhiyan case. And third constitutional amendment, write the year, and third constitutional amendment 2019. If you want, you can write the provision also. 15 clause 4, 16 clause 4. Sorry, 15 clause 6, 16 clause 6. 15 clause 6, 16 clause 6. Both two new articles were added. 10% reservation, everything, you know that. Right, so this is the context. You defined it and you wrote the context also, saying 103rd Amendment upheld by Supreme Court in Janhit Abhiyan case, 10%. Correct? Fine. Now look at the subheading. What they are asking here. In the context of this judgment, what do you have to do first? Enlist the various constitutional provisions related to reservations. Write that subheading. The subheading should be constitutional provisions related to reservation. Constitutional provisions related to reservation. Fine. First one, Article 15, Clause 4. Article 15, Clause 4. Reservations for SC, ST and OBC or special measures for the advancement of the tell. Reservations for SC, ST and OBC. Fine. Then 15 clause 5, same point, but they specific more specific. Reservations for SC, ST and OBC in educational institutions, higher educational institutions. 15 clause 5, reservations for SC, ST and OBC in central higher educational institutions. Because in 15 you will not have points related to jobs. Central higher educational institutions. And then 16 clause 4, 16 clause 4, reservations for those sections which are not adequately represented in the service. Reservations for those sections, those communities which are not adequately represented. Reservations for those communities which are not adequately represented in the service. In simple terms, SC, ST, OBC, everything reservation is here. Then Article 16 clause 4A, capital you have to write. 16 in bracket 4A. 16 clause 4A. Fine, added by 77th Amendment 1995. 16 clause 4A. 77th Amendment 1995. What is it? In simple terms, reservation in promotion for SC, ST. So it is not for OBC, it is not for EWS, it is not for women also. Reservation in promotion for SC and ST. 16 clause 4A. Clause 4B is also there, which is what ceiling on the that 50% ceiling. That's not very important, don't worry. That is 4B. Then you can directly write this 330 and 332, because they are not telling jobs. In general, they are telling reservation. Article 330 and 332. So what is it about? Reservations for SC and ST in Lok Sabha and State Assembly. Because you know that basic in Rajya Sabha and councils you don't have reservation. Reservations for SC and ST in Lok Sabha and State Assembly. In Lok Sabha and State Assembly. 243D, reservations for SC and ST in Panchayat. 243D, municipalities. 243D, reservation in Panchayat, SC and ST. T, municipality. D, 243T. D is for panchayats, T is for municipalities. Then this 335. Reservation for SC and ST. Reservation for SC and ST should not affect administrative efficiency. 335. That's what is your, if you can recall your prelims question, which we keep discussing in your M. Nagaraj case. Reservations for SC and ST should not affect administrative efficiency. Fine, that was also told in M. Nagaraj case also, that will come to that. Fine, so these are your broadly the supreme, what do you call as this, the first subpart, that is your what is the question they are asking? Constitutional provisions related to reservation they are telling. We are not specifically in the context of EWS, we are discussing. Now the second subpart, Supreme Court's, so write that subheading, Supreme Court's opinion on reservation, or Supreme Court's cases on judgments on whatever you can write. Supreme Court's opinion on reservation. Fine. I'll make it simple. First one, Champakam Dorairajan case. Champakam Dorairajan case. 1951. Champakam Dorairajan case 1951. Fundamental rights is greater than DPSP. Is superior compared to DPSP. FR greater than DPSP. But what you can do? However, FR can be amended under 368. FR greater than DPSP, but FR can be amended under 368 to provide reservations. FR can be amended under 368 to provide for reservations. FR can be amended under 368 to provide reservations. Fine, that is one. Then they made so many changes, that's all not necessary. Then the landmark one, you know, Indira Sani 1992. Indira Sani case 1992. So what all did Supreme Court say? Keep writing in points. Yeah, first point, OBC reservation upheld. Indira Sani case, OBC reservation upheld. Fine, point number one. Point number two, reservation for EWS invalid, illegal. Because that was Supreme Court had told long back itself. Reservation for EWS not allowed, invalid. 3. Total reservation, what? Should not cross 50%, except in extraordinary circumstance, like to bring the rural people or remote people into the services, something like that. Total reservation should not cross 50%, except in extraordinary circumstance. Except in extraordinary circumstance. Then, no reservation in promotion. No reservation in promotion. No reservation in promotion. Then, creamy layer within OBC excluded from reservation. Creamy layer within OBC excluded from reservation. Creamy layer within OBC excluded, that means you will not get the reservation benefits. Excluded from reservation. Right, these are the core ones. Got it? Then comes your M. Nagaraj case, 2006. A. Nagaraj is related to Jallikattu, M. Nagaraj case 2006. M. Nagaraj case 2006. Reservation in promotion for SC and ST can be provided based on 3 grounds. Triple test again. Reservation in promotion for SC and ST based on 3 grounds. Reservation in promotion for SC and ST based on 3 grounds. First one, backwardness of the community. Backwardness or inadequate representation, anything backwardness, or you can use the word inadequate representation. Inadequate representation of the community. That means where? In the higher services, in the top services. Inadequate representation of the community in top services. B, quantifiable data. You should use it, I mean, you should give the reservation based on data. Quantifiable data means statistics. Quantifiable data. And C, third one, what? Efficiency of administration should not be compromised. 335. Administrative efficiency should not be affected. Administrative efficiency should not be affected. Should not be affected. Clear? That is your M. Nagaraj case. Then, Jarnail Singh case. Jarnail Singh versus Lakshmi Gupta, they call it as Jarnail Singh, Jarnail. Jarnail Singh case. Consequential seniority in case of reservation in promotion upheld. That I can't explain, but you in general you know, take it as it's a benefit for SC and ST. Consequential seniority in the context of reservation in promotion upheld. Consequential seniority in the context of reservation in promotion upheld. Fine, that is a point. Various Supreme Court judgment. Now you can criticize a bit also, because actually the question is not about reservation itself. They are talking about constitutional provisions and various Supreme Court judgments. Now automatically if you want to argue for what? Arguments for, arguments against. Normally reservation question they will not touch. I am telling you, because if you look at 2013 to 2022, that concept itself they leave it. Maybe as I said, because it is, a little sensitive issue, but you can use little arguments. Please write arguments for reservation. Janhit Abhiyan case is next one that anyhow we have written in the beginning itself. Arguments for reservation. Why do you need that? So why do you think reservation is needed? First point is what? Upliftment of the vulnerable sections, that is, or upliftment of vulnerable sections subjected to historical injustice. Upliftment of vulnerable sections subjected to historical injustice. That is one. Two, it is based on the equity principle. It is based on the equity principle, not equality, equity principle, where the weak are given certain special provisions. It is based on the equity principle where the weaker section is given, or you can say the vulnerable sections are given certain special provisions. Vulnerable sections given certain special provisions. Fine. Then next one. Leaders like Ambedkar, Periyar, Nehru have backed it. Leaders like Ambedkar, Periyar, Nehru have backed it. Fine, you can also add Supreme Court has also upheld it. That's the reason it's continuing. Supreme Court has also upheld it. Supreme Court has also upheld it. Fine, then what it contributes to? It also contributes to social reform. It also contributes to social reform through redistributive justice. Means you're distributing all that powers, benefits angle. It also contributes to social reform through redistributive justice. Through redistributive justice. Fine, social justice, all those angles. Then what is it? It is not just in India. Where do this? Even developed countries have reservation provisions, because this global angle you should always bring. Even developed countries have reservation provisions. So it's not just in India. Even in developed countries you have such provisions. Even developed countries have the reservation provisions. These are all, yes, you have to have it. Then counter arguments, arguments against. Of course, you can keep on writing. I have just given you, because in exam you can only write that much. Keep that and just go, you have to put it there. What are the arguments against? First point. What is the first point? It creates class, or it has created a class within class. It has created a class within class. So underline that or put that in single inverted, class within class. What does that mean? Few sections or few people within the reserved category keep getting the benefits. That's what you call as class within class. That is, few dominant sections within the reserved community keep getting the benefits. That is, it is not actually going to the last person. Same old people, there in one generation, next generation, they will only keep getting, or some kind of misuse kind of a one. That is, few dominant sections within the reserved community keep getting the benefits. Keep getting the benefits. And that is one argument. Second argument is what? It goes against the principle of meritocracy. It goes against the principle of meritocracy. It goes against the principle of meritocracy. Fine, that is another argument. Next point, issue is highly politicized. The issue is highly politicized, which I don't even have to explain. The issue is highly politicized, which has taken away the rational objective criteria behind it. Means what? Anybody who protests is given a reservation now. The issue is highly politicized, taking away the rational objective criteria behind it, intention behind it. Rational objective criteria behind it. Sir, how do you say? If you want, you can say, for example, in multiple states, reservation percentages has reached what? 60 to 70%. In multiple states, reservation has reached 60 to 70%. In multiple states, it has reached 60 to 70%. Reservation is looked at as a poverty eradication measure, but it is just a measure to improve the representation. Poverty is considered reservation is considered as a poverty eradication measure. That means people are looking at it as that give reservation, you will lift the people out of poverty. It is considered as a poverty eradication measure, but what is it? However, it is a measure to increase representation of certain sections in government services. However, it is a measure to increase representation of certain sections in government service. It means it's not to eradicate poverty, the intention itself is different, but it is misconstrued. It is just a measure to increase representation of certain communities in government service. And then the provision is highly misused. The provision is highly misused even by the dominant section, which I don't even have to explain. The provision is highly misused even by dominant sections. So within OBC, SC, ST, all those things, because in SC, ST you don't have creamy layer, in OBC, a lot of misuses are there. We know that in EWS also it is misused. The provision is highly misused by the dominant sections. Right? So then what you have to do? Then what is the point? You should always back reservation, always understand that never ever you can put the counter argument. Conclusion is what? You should always select reservation is needed. Reservation is needed. Reservation is needed in a country like India. Reservation is needed in a country like India with huge socio-cultural diversity. It is needed in a country like India with huge socio-cultural diversity. With huge socio-cultural diversity. Fine. It is a part of social justice. It is a part of social justice. Fine. But what do you have to do? However, we need to ensure that the benefits go to the real beneficiary. However, we need to ensure that the benefits reach. We need to ensure that the benefits reach the real beneficiary, last beneficiary. Benefits reach the last beneficiary. Fine. So you should always try to back it like that. Fine. Any other question left out related to fundamental rights? I think the only thing is now broadly we have covered everything related to rights, because that's where you get the question. Mostly I've done. Just right. Let's go to DPSP then. Only two areas is there. One is UCC question and there is another one that will write it. So if the question is on DPSP, first let's write the concept part. What you should remember from the basics. Obviously what you should remember. Part 4, Article 36 to 51. Part 4, Article 36 to 51. That is first aspect you should remember. Then you may have to use certain statements, you write that, because that you can anytime use in your introduction, what do you call as this, conclusions or anywhere. Granville-Austin. Granville-Austin. FR plus DPSP equals what? Conscience of the Constitution. Granville-Austin. FR plus DPSP equals fundamental rights plus DPSP equals what? Conscience, Atmasakshi, conscience of the Constitution. Conscience of the Constitution. Then L.M. Singhvi was a former foreign service expert and all those things. L.M. Singhvi. DPSP are life-giving provisions to the Constitution. Because remember why I am writing these statements? These ones you can use in your introduction, conclusions and arguments. Are L.M. Singhvi, they are life-giving. DPSPs are life-giving provisions to the Constitution. Life-giving provisions to the Constitution. And then MC Setalwad, first Attorney General of India, MC Setalwad. MC Setalwad, DPSPs are beacon lights of the Constitution. That means they are like the most important ones. DPSPs are beacon lights, BEACON, beacon lights to the Constitution. Beacon lights to the Constitution. Dr. Ambedkar, DPSPs realize social and economic democracy. Dr. Ambedkar, DPSPs try to achieve. DPSPs realizes social and economic democracy, which is the foundation of democracy. Social and economic democracy, which is foundation of the democracy. Remember, in democracy you can divide into political, social, economic, like that, which is the foundation of democracy. Right? So these are all various statements. Then we'll not talk about welfare state, non-justiciability, all those things, you know. Okay, features we'll write, features. Then we'll not write Gandhi and everything. Important DPSP that you have to by heart for mains perspective, I'll tell. What are the features? First point is what? Realizes welfare state. Keyword. Realizes welfare state. That is first one. Instrument of instruction, everything doesn't matter. Those are all prelims aspect. Realizes welfare state is one. Two, social economic democracy. Social economic democracy is two. Three, fundamental to the principles and policies of the state. Fundamental principles of the policies and programs of the state. Fundamental principles of the policies and programs of the state. In bracket you can say Article 37. Fundamental principles of the policies and programs of the state. Then non-justiciable. Non-justiciable. Fine, features. Now you know that obviously classification, everything is there, we don't have to want. Which DPSP you should remember because some are important ones. Fine, just note that. 39 clause B. So that you have to remember because it may come use, you can use that anywhere. What is clause B? Use resources for common good of all. I am just paraphrasing, making it easy. Use resources for common good of all. Use resources for common good of all. 39 clause C. Prevent concentration of wealth and resources. 39 clause C. Prevent concentration of wealth and resources. That you have to remember. 40 you have to remember. Organize panchayats and empower them. 40. Organize panchayats and empower them. Then 44 UCC. 44 UCC. 47 promote public health and nutrition. 47 promote public health nutrition. 50 SOP. 47 promote public health and nutrition. Article 50 SOP. Article 51 international relations. Harmonious international relations. Promote harmonious international relations. That is 51. Right? So only these you should remember with respect to the articles. Clear? Then the things that you have to remember is Champakam Devarajan, all those things are there, but basic point, Keshwanda Bharati, remember three aspects. First one is what? In case of any conflict, keep that in mind, that's it, FR prevails. But it can be amended, FR can be amended to implement certain DPSP. But what is the check? Don't violate basic structure. Those three you have to remember, that's it. That probably they would have written even here, or else we'll write it later. Now, before this, let's finish off which question? Not that folder. Huh? That. We can close this. How do to? How to exit the full screen mode here? Okay, we'll finish off better this itself. I'll directly tell the question. So we can write that one. 2015 UCC related question. Where's the UCC question? Broadly, you can write it as UCC. We'll write the arguments for, against, UCC, everything. UCC. Arguments for, against. Fine. So try to recall. How can you write the question on UCC? First, define UCC. UCC refers to application of UCC refers to the application of same law. UCC refers to the application of the same law with respect to civil issues. With respect to civil issues like application of the same law with respect to the civil issues like marriage. With respect to the civil issues like marriage, divorce, property succession, adoption, etc. for all the citizens. Civil issues like marriage, divorce, property succession, inheritance, adoption, etc. for all the citizens, irrespective of their religious background. irrespective of the religious background. This is the definition. Got it? So you have to write this definition if the question is on UCC. Then what is the core context? At present in India, there exists uniform criminal code. At present in India, there exists uniform criminal code through IPC, CRPC, Indian Evidence Act, etc. Uniform criminal code through IPC, CRPC, Criminal Procedure Code, Indian Evidence Act, etc. Indian Evidence Act, etc. Fine, then below that, even in the non-personal issues, even in non-personal issues, there exists uniform civil code. Even in the non-personal issues, there exists uniform civil code. Like what? Like CPC, Civil Procedure Code, Transfer of Property Act, etc. Like CPC, Transfer of Property Act, etc. CPC, Transfer of Property Act, etc. Clear? So that means criminal code is obviously is uniform for all. Same law applies in case of any criminal issues. In civil issues, you have to subdivide. One is personal, non-personal. In the non-personal, already it is common for all. Non-personal means what? Other than your marriage, something like that. Personal issues, it is still left out. Got it? Then another basic, with respect to Hindus, the personal law is already codified. With respect to Hindus, personal law is already codified. With respect to Hindus, personal law is already codified through Hindu Code Bill. With respect to Hindus, personal law is already codified through Hindu Code Bill. Hindu Code Bill. It is applicable for Hindus, Jain, Buddhist, Sikh. It is applicable for Hindus, Buddhist, Jain, Sikh. Fine. Muslims, Christians and Parsis have their own personal law. Means based on their religion, tradition, whatever you call them as. Muslims, Christians and Parsis have their own personal law. So I am just giving the entire detail so that depending on is it 10 marker or 15 marker, you have to cut short and all those things you have to write. Got it? Yeah, so then just for your understanding, this you can write in margin also rather than an answer. What you can do? Evolution of UCC. How did it actually evolve? Evolution. I am just giving the entire detail. Evolution. B.N. Rao Committee. Sir B.N. Rao Committee recommended codification of Hindu personal law during British era in pre-independence or in 1940s you can say. Sir B.N. Rao Committee recommended codification of Hindu personal law in 1940s. In 1940s. Then after independence, Dr. Ambedkar drafted Hindu Code Bill as the law minister. After independence, Dr. Ambedkar not codified, you can say, drafted a bill or drafted Hindu Code Bill. After independence, Dr. Ambedkar drafted Hindu Code Bill. Dr. Ambedkar drafted Hindu Code Bill as the law minister. Then Ambedkar resigned, all those things is different story, that's all not needed here. Parliament passed Hindu Code Bill into multiple laws. That means it was not passed as one, multiple things they passed. Parliament passed Hindu Code Bills as multiple laws. Like what? That Hindu Marriage Act, Hindu Marriage Act, Hindu Succession Act, property succession. Hindu Marriage Act, Hindu Succession Act, Hindu Succession Act, Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act, how to adopt the children, who can adopt, what is the condition, will the adopted children get the property or not, yeah, so many things will be there. Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act, then Hindu Guardianship Act, Hindu Guardianship Act. Then the extraordinary, another one is what? For interreligious marriages, Special Marriage Act, that we already discussed. For interreligious marriages, Special Marriage Act. For interreligious marriages, Special Marriage Act. I am giving you broader aspect, that's it, because these all you can't write in answer. Fine. Then the landmark issue another came up in Shabano case. Shabano Begum, they call it as Shabano. Muhammad Ahmad Khan was a Shabano. Shabano case. Shabano case. Supreme Court allowed alimony. Alimony means what? After divorce, the husband has to take care of that kind of a one. Supreme Court allowed alimony even to the Muslim divorced women, because under Muslim personal law, divorced women will not get alimony. Supreme Court allowed or extended, you can say, alimony to ALIMONY, alimony to the Muslim divorced women. Shabano Begum, Shabano case. Then Shaira Bano case, SHAYARA, Shaira, SHAYARA, Shaira Bano Begum or Shaira Bano case. Triple Talaq declared unconstitutional. Triple Talaq declared unconstitutional. Okay, before that you should have written another case, but it's fine, you can write again. Triple Talaq declared unconstitutional. Then before that, if you want space, before in between you had another case. This was in 1990s. Shabano was in 1980s. Then 1990s, Sarala Mudgal case. Supreme Court asked government to pass UCC. Sarala Mudgal case, Supreme Court asked, instructed, that is, the parliament or the government to pass UCC. They said implement it. Now this is how it evolved. Now arguments for why do you need UCC? And remember, first point is UCC is what kind of subject? In margin you can write UCC is what kind of subject? Concurrent subject. That means who can pass laws? Both. UCC is a concurrent subject. That's a, you don't write under arguments for. It's just an additional point to remember. UCC is a concurrent subject. Now come back under arguments for. Why do you need UCC? Why do you need it? A. First one is, first one, to protect the rights of especially women, to protect the rights of women, to protect the rights of women. Fine, like for example, triple talaq, all those things you know. B. Third, second one, simplify complex personal laws. Simplify complicated, complex personal laws. Simplify the complex personal laws. B. C. Promotes unity and integrity, because no religion matters then. Promotes unity and integrity, nation's unity, national unity and integrity. Then enhance, or you can say based on the ideal of secularism. Next one is based on the ideal of secularism. Based on the ideal of secularism. But that is another one. Next one, Goa already has UCC. Goa already has UCC. Goa already has UCC. Then Ambedkar, Nehru, Abdul Kalam have supported it. Ambedkar, Nehru, Abdul Kalam have supported it. And Supreme Court already has, and we have already written so many cases, I will not tell that again. Supreme Court through various cases, Shabano, this, that, everything. Fine, then if you want you can write that side. Supreme Court through Shabano case, Shaira Bano case has supported it. Just now you wrote the cases. Supreme Court through Shah Bano case, Sarala Mudgal case, Shaira Bano case has supported it. Supreme Court through Shah Bano case, Sarala Mudgal case, Shaira Bano case has supported it. Then arguments against. Why don't you, what are the challenges, arguments against, anything you can call it as. Factors inhibiting, whatever you call it as. What is the first factor? Article 25 and 26 provides freedom of religion. Or UCC violates 25 and 26 also you can write. 25 and 26 provides freedom of religion. 25 and 26 provides freedom of religion. Fine, then Article 371. Article 371 provides exceptions. Article 371 also provides exceptions. That means it is not just for Muslims and Christians. Under 371 also there are exceptions. Fine, for Nagas and Mizos you can say. Provides exceptions for Nagas and Mizos. Now will you apply for them also is the question. Provides exceptions for Nagas and Mizos. 371A, 371G, but that's not necessary. That is another one. Next point. It may lead to imposition of majoritarian values on minority. May lead to imposition of, because remember we keep telling, like for example in a Muslim personal law, cousin marriages are also allowed. Means, but in Hindu personal law or Hindu code bill, you can't even imagine that. So will you apply that or not then? Should it continue or not? If you apply the same law, how will you apply it? Like that many issues are there. In property succession, remember I told you, under Muslim personal law, cousins will also get. But under typical Hindu succession act, everything it's not there. Now will you apply it, will you not apply it? We don't know. That means complications we are telling. It may lead to imposition of majoritarian values on minority. That's another apprehension, fear kind of a one. Then Law Commission recently said that it is neither necessary nor desirable at this moment. Law Commission said that it is neither, UCC is neither necessary nor desirable at present. Law Commission has said that it is neither necessary nor desirable at present. That means you don't want it now. Neither necessary nor desirable at the moment. At this moment. Fine, these are all various arguments against. Then what is the way forward? Way forward. Way forward. First, what you can do? You can say gradual approach can be followed. Gradual approach can be followed. So what does that mean? Gradual approach can be followed wherein few provisions can be subjected to UCC. Few you leave it, few you subject. That is one of the way. Gradual approach can be followed where few subjects or few provisions will be part of UCC. Will become part of UCC. Where few provisions will be part of UCC. That is one. Second point. So what it can also be done? Rather than same law for all, means Hindu, Muslim, Christian, everybody same law, rather than same law for all, rather than same law for all, Parliament can codify separate laws for Muslims, Christians, Parsis. So Hindu all separately, Hindu, Muslim, whatever it is existing, Muslim separately, Christian separately, Parsis separately. Parliament can codify different laws for Muslims, Christians and Parsis. But what it should be based on? All of them should be based on constitutional values like equality and justice. It means Parliament will pass it. It may be different for Muslim, different for Christian, but what is the core? All of them should be based on constitutional values like equality and justice. Equality, liberty, justice. Should be based on equality, liberty, justice. Then, before doing all these things, what we need? We need multi-stakeholder discussion. We need multi-stakeholder discussion. We need multi-stakeholder discussion as it is a religious or religio-culturally sensitive subject. We need multi-stakeholder discussion as it is a religious, cultural, sensitive subject to achieve consensus. As it is religiously, culturally sensitive subject to achieve the consensus. Then, yeah, and the argument against you can also use another one. UCC is a DPSP, which is what? Which is what? Non-justiciable. You don't have to mandatorily do it. Arguments against, there you can use. UCC is a DPSP, which is non-justiciable. So that means it's not mandatory. Why are you taking it so seriously is another counter argument you can say. UCC is a DPSP, where you have written arguments against, I am telling. It is a DPSP which is non-justiciable. Fine, this is a bigger picture of UCC. Let them ask anything related to that, just copy paste the points. They have to give you 50% of the marks. There is no doubt. Got it? Point is, will you do it within time frame or not? Fine. Okay. So then the other topic which is left out, the major topic under this is preamble. All those things normally they don't give question. 1 year just you have it. The constitutional morality, basic structure, constitutionalism, natural justice. 4 topics are there that we will do it tomorrow. Then we will go to directly, we will see. Comparison of constitution, we will keep it at the end because you don't have so much to discuss. Directly we will go to legislature. And that means parliament, state legislature, what questions they ask. Fine. So tomorrow is Sunday, but still you will have same because this is how it will go happen. Fine. Same class tomorrow, Sunday morning 10:30.